Invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you today as an assembled body. We humbly request that you bless our meeting, our community, our nation. Help us diligently work for the common good and in the best interests of those we have been elected to represent. Guide us in insightful and prudent in our intentions. Work through us to provide a spirit of welcome to all in attendance, to engage in respectful and thoughtful dialogue. Let's do the pledge next. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texan flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Let's see. We have any public comments? Nope.
I'm surprised after everything that's gone down in the past couple of days.
Yeah. Any adjustments? Nothing this month, huh? Okay, we have a consent agenda. I'd like to pull out number 7. I have a question on that. Anybody, anything else? So I'll take a motion to approve the consent. Yes, Tom?
Any discussion on that? You
Okay.
put it out.
Any discussion? Are we have the discussion before we vote? Or after we vote?
Vote on the remainders of
Yeah.
5, 6, 8, and 9, then come back to 7.
Okay. So any other comments about consent agenda? No. So I take a motion.
I have a question on the financial report that I kind of discussed before the meeting started with Maureen, but we'll get into that.
So you're gonna pull out 6?
No, that would be 5, I think. No,
5.
6, you're right. No, you're
6.
right.
Okay, pull out 6, pull out 7. Anything else? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
I get a second? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, so let's go to the regular agenda. We received monthly SRA Woodlands Division report, including updates, operations, and projects and public outreach. Oh, I'm sorry. Then I'm not used to this yet. Okay. I'll get there. So let's, Fred, you want to begin since your number is
Is before.
before?
Okay. I had some questions concerning the operating statement and the balance sheet for MUD 46. Specifically, it relates to the what I call the SGRA rebate of $702,000 that occurred back. It was posted on March, but effectively hit our books, I think, in May. Is that correct, Maureen?
Yeah.
Okay. And Maureen and I discussed it briefly, but when I reviewed this from an operating perspective the first time, the $702,000, I was under the impression was that as going to be kept as a separate line item to determine what we as a board wanted to do with it, which begged the second question, which was how is the interest for that $702,000 being captured and identified and added to that $702,000 base? And
It's a separate line item, you mean?
yes, this is
Is it a line item now?
it is it's moved in. It's on, let's see, page 8, balance sheet fund 462. Wait,
Yeah,
I don't-
find it's itemized.
707,000 in total,
right.
which is what the rebate was, and it was offered as a credit memo to your monthly bulk water sewer expenses. So it wasn't necessarily,
Right.
it's just reduced your expense.
But it was captured in the balance sheet, at least in this month, on page 8, in Texas class, which is included as 661,803. What my concern was, it went from March 702 and change down to that, and I didn't understand why. And what the variance was, which is 40,000 and change. Maureen explained that to me before the meeting started. But my concern is, and my my thought is that we had agreed that we were going to keep that separate until the board determined how we were going to handle that $700,000 and change. And in the interim, interest would be accruing into that account, which would make it more than 700 some odd thousand. So since I didn't see the 3,000 and change of interest that was detailed out from being put in the class line item, which is accruing interest at an annual rate of 5.4%. I asked the questions of Maureen. She answered them to my satisfaction. Why don't you just go through it quickly now? And then we as a board, my recommendation, if she does it, determine if and how we segregate that money. It's a board decision, not my decision, please.
Right, it was, like I said, it was offered as a credit memo against your monthly expenses in May, which we booked in May, and I took that refund of 707,000 to other revenue, which is, you can find on the top of page 5. The interest earned, it just means we didn't have to take that money out to cover the expense to them, so it sits in tax pool actually. And the interest earned is also on page 5 in investment interest
Right.
and earning interest
It's
at the rate.
it's aggregated in with all of it, right?
Sure.
Yeah, right.
Rating reserve balance cases.
So the question to you, as president,
Now,
Boy,
you have a question, Tom?
it was originally labeled as a GRP rebate.
Yes.
Credit memo
That's what it
Okay.
is.
Okay, and where is the money sitting now?
in tax pool,
Okay,
wise, yeah, but
And that,
it
We're
was
right there.
a credit memo.
and that credit was overcome.
Page 8.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm looking at the.
Oh, you're looking at
May.
the whole thing. Okay.
Yeah, what's in here? And what are the options?
Well, I don't know what we can legally do, but in the world I come from, we normally segregate windfall, both from an accounting perspective and operating perspective, and it doesn't get bunched into operating funds. That's where I come from. So I'm asking the question, how does the board want to handle this going forward? And what are our limitations in use since this was a rebate from GRP? And that's a legal question.
like, how would you create a line item with what
What
prerequisites?
category? Yeah.
Well, it's sitting in tax pool, so I mean.
Just like underneath there.
Sure.
a
Oh,
little-
it's just sitting there earning interest.
But so is other funds in there too, right?
And we would have to.
Operating funds, yes,
Right.
correct.
It's another, it's just another line item to open up underneath the category, isn't it?
So when we do the budgets,
Open up new accounts.
yeah, so next month when we do the budget, it'll appear in O&M.
Is it worth opening up a new account?
And
Right, and so what I was thinking along the lines of the budget is maybe I want to wait on making a decision on this till you get the draft budget and you see.
Good idea.
You see what the projected reserve is going to be incorporating this
Mhm.
and what's being recommended for rates, to try to get your reserve up a little bit. I know that's been.
That's something that
for a
I
while.
think Eric and I and any other board members want to do too.
Right, so if it looks like maybe you're gonna have more surplus than what your target is, I doubt that's gonna happen, then maybe you wanna segregate that off. If you need it to kind of boost your overall reserve, then you may just wanna leave it aggregated in your operating reserve. Well, maybe we wait to have that discussion till you see your draft budget.
Certainly we could do that.
Do you know where we stand on our reserve?
You are ahead of the target. You're at 4 months. The target through June was 2.8.
So we're ahead of,
Sure.
What's that?
Just the
Yeah,
month.
that wasn't
thought
the
the
goal.
goal-
That was, I think, just what was in the budget, but not
I
the,
just track it.
not the goal of staff.
I thought the goal,
Yes, correct.
1
Well,
year.
that's just where we are. Yeah, yeah. Where we started was 2.8 or 9, I think.
correct.
And
What was the
and
goal?
this 700 is helping that number go up, obviously, at this point.
But as I recall, the goal was
9 to 12 months. is
12
what-
months
What
of-
Eric said.
Correct,
reserve,
correct,
and we're at 4 months.
correct. Well, as of this month,
We still have
Projection.
I had a projection.
and that 9 to 12 is from where?
Industry standards.
And does it make a difference that we don't run the water and sewer plant?
It
Most MUDs do.
it would if you didn't have some aging infrastructure.
Yeah.
As time goes on, that's the issue.
Yeah,
Is yes, you don't have mechanical equipment, so
right.
typically that
Right.
you could say there's a
There's a difference.
difference
Yeah.
there for sure.
You were going to put together a document that did an assessment of the repair potential, projected
We're
out,
working on it, yeah,
still working on it.
yes.
When do you think that'll occur?
We also had some unexpected repair work that had to be done. The conduits at that had to be replaced.
Correct.
And that was not forecasted, and maybe some of that money can be used for that.
Yeah, I think when we look at the budget, we'll look at actuals
Mhm.
and that'll be in there for
Okay.
sure. And we'll see where things fall out. I was hopeful to have those projections in a CIP prior to the budget cycle, but it's looking like we may miss it.
Yes.
So I still want to get the CIP developed.
And you're doing that across all much, right?
Correct. There's been some switchover in our sub-consultant that does the mowing and all that. And so typically we'd have them go in June and do a walkthrough, drive-through of all the ditches.
Right,
And this year we said, look, when you do that, take extra close attention to
piping.
the back slope interceptor pipes, exactly, to see if there's anything that would lead us to believe that what Fred just mentioned a couple months ago, which was a big sinkhole, pulled in a fence and everything from a resident, that we don't have a bunch of those lingering, because we know we probably do. I just want to get ahead of it and calculate what's the total risk here. That's my interest, so that you can budget for the
Right,
future,
that's right.
either with cash or whatever the plan is. We'll get there.
So we don't need to approve how we capture and record that at this point. We could do it during the budget process. Is that the best way
I think
for
so.
you folks? Maureen, you okay with that?
I am.
Good.
So we don't need any voting. We just go take care of that in the next
If
one.
everyone's comfortable with it, the board's okay with it, I'm okay.
And your first look at the budget tax recommendations is actually the next one.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Oh, the next item was 7, and the question I had, which has probably been here for many years, but if you look on page 14, and it has pledged securities by JP Morgan Chase and pledged securities by Wood Forest Bank. And looks like we have like 3.1, over $3 million in some sort of bond. What is that?
Pledge securities managed by the bank because our funds are public funds that require pledge collateral.
So
Funds that we manage.
how does that work then? How does that, in terms of, we didn't buy a bond because it said market value, fair value.
Okay.
They look at our balances, they just try to collateralize as much as we may need throughout the month.
That's not collateral that the district comes up with. That's the collateral that the bank.
The bank comes up.
But with a third-party institution, the thought under the Public Funds Investment Act being that if you have your primary bank go under and what you have at that bank is over the FDIC
Yeah, I see.
amount, that you've got collateral with a third-party institution that didn't go bankrupt, and you can draw on that collateral to help make you whole between your deposit less your FDIC, you draw on the collateral to be made whole.
So in this case, Wood Forest Bank is pledging Clear Creek ISD bonds as collateral. Okay.
There's a litany of items that are allowable collateral in the Public Funds Investment Act, and that's what they put. Your Federal Home Loan Bank or Federal Reserve Bank.
Satisfies me. Okay, let's go to agenda item.
So we do need action.
We need to act on that.
We got a vote to approve.
Since we took about it.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve item 6 and 7.
I so move.
Second.
Second.
Somebody signal yes. If they
Aye.
approve it, aye. Okay, well, 1 to 10. SRA monthly review update.
Begins on page 17 in your packet, runs through page 37. Nothing out of the ordinary, no violations that occurred in June. As for the hurricane, there's 57 sites within inside the Woodlands, and 56 of those lost power. By Wednesday morning, there was 49 of them back with online power. The other 8 were between Friday and this Monday at 10 a.m. No service interruptions across the board, water or sewer. And staff worked 24/7 since last Sunday at 9 p.m. until Saturday at 7 a.m. No major damage. And modern duct tape definitely held up.
Will next month have the financial information online?
Yes, and so that is what I was told. So on page 21, you're gonna see we have no financials. Last month you did have financials, but they were as of April 30th.
Was there anything that we should be aware of?
At this point, I don't even know. To be
Okay, that's fair.
Right. So they were supposed to be delivered this month. Accounting informed us last week that it's gonna be another month. So our board has directed them to have the financial reporting done by August. That way, because they don't have financials, y'all don't have financials, I don't have financials. So I talked to accounting today and I said, I just need to know where I need to stand. But what they need to do is they need to go into the old system. Since I went from September 1 to May 1, basically,
Right.
they need to pull those financials out, then they have to go into the new system and pull from basically May 1 to current out and combine it. So I've asked them to do that just to give me a broad overview trial balance.
What drove that change and conversion of accounting systems?
So Great Plains was the original software. It was no longer supported, out of date, lots of custom connections, if you will, between all these little ancillary softwares that we put in to make it work.
That's
And
interesting.
so all that together, a couple of years ago, they made the move to Dynamics 365, Microsoft.
It doesn't require any type of a audit or reexamination of the books to make sure it works. Everything is just going to be plug and play kind of.
They're gonna cover a lot of that whenever they do the audit here in a couple months.
Okay.
They're gonna go back through and make sure everything from the old system to the new system lines up. They can get some reports out, but the numbers they're not trusting, that's why they're putting them all back together just to make sure. So it's internal audit as well as external audit.
Thanks, Chris.
Did the old company get bought out or disappear or
It
what?
should disappear. It's so old.
Just disappeared.
Disappeared?
I believe it was an old Microsoft.
So old, like one of the
audit
oldest.
line. Yeah, just kind of goes away. So
Chris, the target blend rate of 50%, 50. Is that across the board with your top 5 customers?
any GRP participant that receives 50% surface water right now is the Woodlands Division. At the Woodlands Division request, and Mr. Mooney requesting that from the GRP Review Committee and getting that. Page 34 is the GRP water usage, the middle column. So Woodlands Division is 50%. The other users are about 35%. There's no longer any type of Lone Star regulation related to groundwater usage, so I kind of backed off on the 50% versus 35. Because GRP is only going to be producing 13 million gallons a day. And as the county grows, Conroe grows mostly, their demand's going to go up, so the percentage is going to go down. So my response to Woodlands is 50.
That's a very good chart at the bottom of page 34. Can I make a request? Can you put a percentage following the gallon figure? Add a third column.
On the part?
There's
Oh,
three
overall.
different
Groundwater usage.
categories.
So if you use those top five
By
customers,
customer, yeah.
you take all 5, it should equal about 99%, correct?
No, it's actually. So total production, total sales, including groundwater. Catahoula Aquifer, by the way, is non-charged water. It's not our water. We don't do anything with it. The first two columns being groundwater and surface water are the total amounts. That for all GRP participants is about 21 billion gallons a year. So when you take into consideration Woodlands and GRP, I want to say you're at 8 or 9, so it should be closer to 50%.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit more.
Is it possible to add a third column?
Okay.
This is just from a personal perspective because I do such business with the township. And that's a question they're going to ask.
It's a good number to use. We've used it many times before, so.
Tom, do you want a other column down there?
I just
Total out the-
Alongside of it.
Other row?
Third column alongside of the gallons, because the gallons confuse my brain, the percentages.
I'm saying if you have another column, you could have everybody else but the top 5,
Well, I could.
and that would sum to you 100.
I could care less about some of those small guys. I just
But
want
that
to.
represents 50% of the volume. All those others, right? It's up to you.
Okay, and then on the same vein of thought, do you guys track the aquifer level?
Evangeline and Jasper, we check that twice a year, once around March and once around October.
Okay, and do you have trends for the year, the last year?
Yeah.
Still going
Since
down?
like 1980, we can provide Eric, and you can send it out.
Okay, because it does affect township in ways.
So we're ahead of budget billing. From a revenue perspective, we're ahead of budget, which is a function of obviously the difference in water that we're getting, the mix, correct?
Are you Woodlands now?
Yes, almost only Woodlands. Yeah,
Say that again then?
only focusing on a Woodlands division. Our revenue is ahead of budget, which means that we are moving more water from groundwater at this point or less.
Right now, I'd have to see the exact when. You're probably, yeah, a little bit more, you're dead on 50/50 on the page, bottom of 17.
Okay.
That's one of the things that I do look at when you have the budget, for example, you'll see the revenue at the top for GRP pumping, then at the bottom, you'll see the expense. And that's how you can tell if you're a little bit high on one or low on the other.
Got it. Okay, good. Thank you.
But there's a seasonality effect on that. So the object is to true up at the end, by the end of the year.
The best you can, that's
Best
what
you
you
can.
can, plus or minus 10%.
Right. Yeah.
More groundwater in the winter, less, no, more surface water in the winter.
Like,
Yeah, and the Woodlands has about 30 days left of surface water, maybe 45, just depending on how hot it gets. This cool front country is going to help out a little bit, but trying to hit it right on exactly where it needs to be.
Thank you.
Chris, on page 35, under the GRP rate study. At the last month meeting, the June meeting, the rate study memo was listed to be complete by May 31st, and now it's been moved to July 5th.
Right, the rate study memo was actually delivered July 11th. So you can imagine the GRP, the rates, the lawsuits and everything had to go through legal review. And so that took about 45 days collectively, which pushed us behind. But it did go to our board last month and the review committee, and they both approved the rate as well as the rate study and model.
you've announced that.
Yes.
Yes. Any more questions?
Yeah, just a second here. This may be more of a question for Brian, but the recent Supreme Court decision on the Chevron, is that going to have any effect on the SJRA as far as EPA mandates for testing?
Great question.
Yeah, I couldn't say. I couldn't speak to that. I think we need to have SGRA speak to that.
Okay.
There's gonna be a lot of changes.
Discussed any of that?
We've heard of it.
Okay, because they recently came down with PFAS testing requirements. And that's not cheap, and it was unfunded mandate. Of course, you're going to pass on the cost to your customers.
Right, if I remember the PFAS though, is this similar to the EPA one? I know you said Chevron, that's what's throwing me for a loop, but I don't watch oil and gas.
Okay, and it's not Chevron. Well, you can explain it better than I can, but basically you have these three-letter agencies like the EPA that come down and issue these mandates.
Constitutional.
And they have no authority to do that. So,
Yeah.
Was-
My guess is it's too early
I got
to
you.
say, would be my guess, because that Supreme Court case you're referring to just came out, in terms of implications from that. I doubt, there's been.
Probably the greatest decision in the history of
That's gonna be.
decisions.
all right.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So, just on the PFAS side of the world though, we've tested, y'all have tested through your UCMR, the lake, the GRP water, the wastewater and the groundwater in the woodlands. And like Ponder was so far has shown no evidence of any of the potentially regulated
keep passes.
I wouldn't expect it to, but the SJRA has a website that tracks 11 different pollutants and biological contaminants in the water. And the website apparently is down. So I looked at it today and there's no data for the last 60 days.
And you know, that's drinking water?
Yeah, it's,
At their website or someone else's website that.
no, I don't know, but the SJRA referred me to it. And of course, that's up my alley. So anyway,
Look into it. If you can show me a website, that'd be great.
Water scan.
Yeah.
Anything else?
yeah, I got one more question.
Okay.
Chris, during the new director's orientation briefing that we had over at the wastewater treatment plant, I asked the question two questions. What year was the wastewater treatment plant built and how much did it cost to build? And the gal that was in the back of the room,
Count Steiger?
she couldn't find the answer for me then, but she said, I'll get back with you on those answers.
Not provided.
Could you follow up on that? Thank you very much. That's all I've got.
Question I asked also at Debbie.
Okay, let's go to the next agenda item. Receive updates for the Bear Branch and Panther Branch. And the research forest drainage improvement projects.
Skip 11.
I thought we said we didn't have a budget on 11.
No, you have a budget. The budget's what was presented in May.
Oh, okay.
Last month, we asked if there was any questions. This month, if there's any questions, we can go through those. If not, this is the time when MUD 46 votes to direct their trustee how to vote at the August trustees meeting where the official vote is taken.
Okay.
Nothing has changed in the
Any
budget.
questions? I don't have any questions. Yeah.
I have a question. I noticed your chlorine costs have skyrocketed. They've gone up fourfold. Are you guys, what mitigating strategies are you using?
So I'll tell you what we're doing to reduce that. Let me just see real quick. Chlorine,
On page 46 of the May,
on the budget, I'm showing chlorine, the proposed budget for FY 25 is $91,000 less than the current budget of FY 24, so a 12% reduction.
okay, and then that's because I'm showing your costs,
Oh, I got it.
container cost.
Container costs have skyrocketed. Overall budget has reduced because of our mitigating strategies.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. I'm letting them together. So yeah, we used to buy chlorine at like 475, less than $500 a ton. Last 2 or 3 years, it's gone up to 2,500 and it's going to continue to go up. If you have a pool, it's the same thing when you're buying your chemicals for that.
Yeah.
So seeing this, what we tried out, actually earlier this year at wastewater plant 2 was a real-time control of chlorine, where it's more reliant, not just on the flow, but actually reliant on the actual demand of the wastewater itself and the flow as well. And so by doing that, we eliminated about 35 to 40% of the chlorine uses at wastewater plant 2. So that's where you're seeing the bulk of the actual reduction from. In the capital projects for this budget, we've also planned to put that at wastewater plant 3, hopefully get the same results, cut that usage 35 to 40%. So far, we haven't put it at plant 1 because the return on investment, if something does happen with plant 1 and plant 1 is replaced in a few years, the return on investment isn't going to be there for plant 1. Cost of unit is 40, 50 grand per to buy it and install it. So if plant 1 stays in place, we'll put the same unit at wastewater plant 1. Hopefully, overall, you'll have a good 40% savings on the wastewater chlorine.
I have.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we, there,
Mhm.
Budget at next month's meeting.
say it again, please.
We do need a vote by this board to direct the trustee on how to vote on the budget
Okay.
at next month trustee meeting.
Okay, so we're going to vote to approve the budget.
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget for the SJRA Woodlands Division.
Oh,
Second.
yeah, okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I see the word consider an act. Okay, so next one is the Bear Branch, Panther Branch, and Research Forest Drainage Improvement Projects. Any-
No update this month.
No update? Okay. Receive attorney's report.
Nothing additional today on the attorney's report.
Okay. Thank you. General Matters report.
Thank you. Good evening. Just wanted to update you on our efforts through the storm. You heard a little bit from Chris on kind of what went on behind the scenes. Just to give you a little bit more perspective on what WWA was up to. We lost power here mid-morning, as many did on Monday. Those that were in the office went back home. I had asked some to stay if they didn't feel safe to get in that early that morning. And so those that were here left, went back. We received power back on early Wednesday morning, so we were back up and running. We were working remotely Monday and Tuesday. Our customer service staff was able to still receive calls from customers. And so many of the calls, we have a system that has an app that'll extend local calls to that so they can still receive it and then push out work orders for our field staff who was also in the field addressing those issues. A lot of the calls that we got were from trees falling in a house, breaking a line, needing the water line off to turn off to stop the leak. And same thing in the yard with trees falling over and the root system pulling up the line and breaking it. It's a lot of that. We were back out on Monday in the field assessing things right after noon when the eye was kind of essentially, we were in it. When we knew the worst, the front edge was kind of past us to assess. So all in all, I think everybody did a really good job. There was a rumor that we heard about that there was a boil water notice in the Woodlands. That was never true. John and I created a public outreach notice that went out early Wednesday just to assure the customers that the water was safe and uninterrupted. And so wanted to make sure, and then that hit social media platforms throughout the day and was originally emailed
Good
out.
report, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, this is my first round at kind of going through this in this position. And we're going to assess how we did. We kind of created a text group within the managers here to make sure that we were all communicating and had plans in place and who was where and who had power and who was what. So, and as you can imagine, some do, some don't. Some had a generator, some didn't. Some had good service at their house, some don't. So, but all in all, we got through it pretty well. So I'm pleased with how it came out to go through.
Did you learn some lessons?
And it did, and there's a couple of directors throughout the last couple of days have talked about, what is our kind of our backup system, backup equipment, things like that. Sat phones, we're talking about different things like that. We don't have any of that necessarily. We made it through this time. Of course, every storm is different. A Cat 3 in that same position or a little west would be right. Ike was, remember, 50 miles east, and we still had. So it just kind of depends on the parameters.
Right.
A
I'm
week,
thinking of Cat 3's evacuation.
yeah. Well, and 2 weeks ago they had it all going to Mexico,
Yeah.
and then
That's right.
I think
every day they get closer, it started feeling up to us.
Down up the east.
Smacked us. So anyway, I think everything went well, and we'll learn.
By the
from
way,
it.
that's Center Point's excuse as well.
We try not to have the excuses. We already talked earlier that we will be going over budget and tax next month, so that's coming. I did want to report that Mike Mooney is retiring, and so this will likely be his last round of meetings. He's going to be retiring August 1. So we greatly appreciate his 20 years of service to WWA and the Woodlands. It'll be a big shoes to fill for us for sure. We are looking and do have some feelers out. I'm interviewing a few people already, so we're trying to fill that position as quickly as we can, and I'll likely rely on him part-time to just get us through that transition, as soon as I can get a replacement. I want to thank Mike for all those years of service and really appreciate it.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And
Great job.
last item was to kick it to John for
Good evening.
communications.
Everyone get the supplemental communication. Going to touch on just a couple things within that. We did send out the water quality reports, also known as consumer confidence reports, beginning of the month. Those were mailed out to every customer. And then we push those out through our other channels as well. Best job we can at making people aware of those. And then those will live online year round. I just gave you a little research there that speaks to the impact that communication has on building trust levels in water quality. It's important that folks hear from us. Direct correlation again with increased trust levels. And then brought back some stats from our last two community surveys there on the right on where our trust levels sit in our water quality, and they stack up quite well. About 8 points higher than national average. So we're doing well on that front. And then on page 2 at the bottom, if you did not see it, we did have a piece in the Woodlands Community Magazine on infrastructure renewal. That gets sent out to every home in the township and apartment. And that's also available online on the township website. If you haven't seen it, check it out there. I'll leave it at that. Any questions?
What's the percentage, you may not know this, I'm sorry, I may be asking the wrong person. What's the percentage of people that have updated their automatic payment to the new site? Who would I ask that about?
The Water Smart,
Yeah.
63%, about 20,000 accounts. Registered.
Getting there.
So for those who didn't make the change, they were, you sent them an email saying they're cut off, or you,
Yeah, well, they.
the auto pays cut off? Yeah,
Yes.
I got one. Yeah.
Multiple emails and.
Multiple, absolutely, yeah. So we're still working with.
Warning.
helping them.
Warning, yeah,
Warning,
yeah.
warning.
But they can pay multiple different ways.
Right.
It's not the only payment that needs.
The good thing is when your credit card runs out, it doesn't affect this, it comes out of your checking account. So it's, you don't have the expiration date issue.
Thanks, John.
Okay, any more? Okay, so we go to 15, Woodlands Water Trustees Report. So we had our trustees meeting, and Ken Maggart had requested from the SRA some analysis. And I'll just pass this around to Marie. And basically, he wanted to know the chemical analysis of the wastewater leaving the system. And I'll be honest, I'm not an expert on this, but because we had some issues about process control. So he asked for 5 years worth of data from 2019 to 2024. And you can see I'm going to mainly talk about dissolved oxygen because that's one I understand. You can see the regulatory limit is 4. And you can see we're popping around 7 most of the time. So there's really no process control. I'm interpreting that correctly. No process control with the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, and so when Mr. Maggard requested this information, I'll tell you all the same thing I told him. If you go back and you look at all the data we've provided, we've never said there's been a compliance issue related to any of these parameters you're looking at. So it's not a chemical DO, there'll be no permit issue related to the parameters of the operation of the facility condition. This just proved that one, there's no operational permit violation causing the request to replace the pump.
So Dave,
What possessed him to ask for the
this was what
report?
I asked Dave. Yeah, well,
What's that?
What possessed him to ask for the report?
You know, there was discussion in the trustee meeting and in some of our meetings that there was a process problem, that it was very difficult to maintain process control of the wastewater treatment plant. One that came out many times. So I make the assumption that, that caused him to say, okay, if that's true, and let's see the data.
Can you
And
elaborate on that process control? problem?
no, it was coming from the SRA. There was a lot of discussion about process control. And
During peak flow, there's issues with peak flow.
Yeah.
but that's not process related. I mean, we know, I pulled all this data together. We know there's no permanent violations. You'll have 2-hour peak flow violations. You'll see E. coli violations just due it's a bacteria, wind blows, it can pick something
Yeah,
up. and
I
put it in the
understand.
sample. But overall, there are some, I wouldn't call them process control issues related to this, but clarify being shallow definitely makes it some difficult operations at times because of settling and other items. Those are things that do need to be addressed at some point. The grandfathering that we currently have does not allow for that to be changed, but new clarifiers would be deeper. But those items are not related to this. Even though we do have some of those internal things, we still maintain.
That was, I think that was the motivation. And since it was handed out, I thought it'd be good to have that you guys get it.
Got his answer.
He's got his answer, right? And
Thank you
then,
for doing that.
and then the second issue that he made was a proposal to hire a independent
Right.
consultant. And I don't think we have much discussion beyond that, but there's some belief that, it's like getting a second opinion when you go to the doctor, that we need a second independent opinion. And I think we have more discussion doing that to,
You want the second opinion on what specifically?
what he wants is, so there's, if you remember the sheet that Ed handed out last meeting, there were 4 items. There was a consultant to go on the membrane, the clarifiers, right? And then there was a comment, hey, what does it cost to maintain the current plant? And that was qualified by Ed that, we're going to have maintain and bring up to new code the current plant. And then that was the position up until this last MUD meeting, last time we met. And they added a fourth item, which was, let's see what it costs to maintain the current plant that we have. And it is some discussion. If you look at the Texas Environmental Quality report, it says plants built before, was it 2008? Grandfathered?
Depends. Every time there's a roll change,
Yep.
the previous design.
I'm not an expert on that, but there,
25 years.
there's desire for that. And I just, if you go back to, just to add more information, if you go back to the SRA's documents, this is a graph. This is wastewater construction costs. And all I'm going to point out here is the electrical and the mechanical represents 44% of the cost of the plant. Right. So a lot of this, when you look at the plant itself, is electrical mechanical, which basically you swap in a new pump, a new valve, a new gearbox, that brings it up to a new life. So if you flip that page over to the bar graph, and you look at the colored bar graph, you see the blue is the mechanical, tells you the remaining useful life. The green is electrical, and the silver is structural or cement. So the comment last time was this is all about the cement, but if you look at this, we have a lot of years left on the cement, and you have the lift station and probably the aeration basin, but the aeration basin includes aeration basin 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So it's just a food for thought that there's a lot of life by the SRA's document that this plant has, and when you swap out electrical and mechanical, those bars would go right up to the top.
But just to clarify, this is not, this document is not SJRA's document. It was signed and sealed by a professional engineer on their independent. I know it was under our contract, but this is a Freeze and Nichols document.
Well, I understand that qualification, but I'm just saying that, that you presented it. I don't have any.
Well, Freeze and Nichols signed, sealed, and stamped.
Yeah, they stamped it. They have their engineers certifying this useful life. And it's, to be honest with you, it's the only document we have.
When was it done?
What's that?
When was this done?
It was done a year and a year and a half ago. It was released.
I don't recall. Sometimes it lasts 3 years.
Yeah. It was like the January of 2023 or something.
About a year and a half. maybe?
Year and a half ago, right? But I'm just making a point that the only information we have is about the remaining useful life or the condition of the plant or the cost of maintaining the plant comes from that consulting firm.
I mean, keep in mind as well, because I know we've crossed this bridge many a times. I'm not gonna
Right, I know.
1,000 times, but there's documents going back the last 10 years from multiple different consultants talking about the condition. Every time a consultant looks at it, they have a differing opinion based on their engineering analysis. This just happens to be one of the more recent ones that was done.
Yeah,
So, and part of the study that you were talking about, the 4 different options, does have another, your second opinion. This is a engineer that has not been involved with this project until now, reviewing the data and making their own independent professional assessment.
and who was that?
Corello Engineers.
When is that expected to be done?
That is 8 months from roughly
Oh,
September.
that's to come.
That is the up to $500,000 study that the trustees approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
So like I said, there's discussion occurring about having a second opinion independent of the SJRA. And that was discussed last trustee meeting. And I make the assumption we're going to end up talking about it more.
Yes.
I've got a question. Before I came on the board, we had a wastewater strategic group or plan, and they spent more than a year doing the same thing, which was step one of trying to come up with a solution. And it now seems like we are back to step one again,
Well, they spent,
and we're spending $500,000 to go back to step one.
well, there was, it was $2 million in that study. And I just make the statement that, you usually begin those studies, you begin with a condition assessment of the current facility. And that was skipped. That was skipped.
It was.
It was skipped. There was nothing about the condition assessment. Well, you have this, you can say that's it. But I'll be honest with you, in a business case, justifying $300 million, that's not satisfactory.
Keep in mind, prior to the stakeholder phase 1 being done, there was in October of maybe 20, maybe 21, my dates are off at this point. There was a discussion with the stakeholders to say, what do you want in scope? The original scope of phase 1 was about $3 million. Included PC, public outreach, a very in-depth $500,000 to $750,000 condition assessment. We were asked to scale that back to what you have here based on the data we had on hand. So there has been condition assessments done before, and this does show that there was one done in the study itself, which was one of the first things done during the study.
Okay,
I'm
real
just,
quick, getting back to this graph. On the last 5 columns, I don't see anything for mechanical. Is that because
those are generators. So it's basically a generator box you slip in, slip out.
they have no useful life, or is it not applicable?
Well, the backup generators, there's two, they're labeled backup generator and generator. They're basically generators, and they have, 29 years of life on them already. And
Already out of life.
you're basically,
Out of life, that's what I'm getting.
they're 5 years left.
They need to be replaced
You need to be
immediately.
replaced, that's right.
All right. All right.
But again, what do you do with those things? You buy a box and you stick it in and you turn it on.
Plug and play.
Plug and play.
Multi-purpose buildings? Can you buy a multi-purpose
What's that?
building?
What's that?
Can you buy a multi-purpose building?
Well, they propose to spend, no, I'm not going by memory now, $950,000 to repair the foundation. So that's the cost of that. Roughly about $950,000 to repair that building. I don't remember all these costs off the top of my head, but that one I do. It's a foundation issue, and they proposed $950,000. I think the remaining useful life building is probably 18 years, as identified by this report.
I did watch the trustee meeting.
Yeah.
And Director Maggart stated that the SJRA used 217 gallons per day as the standard, industry standard for SFDUEs. And that because our actual usage was somewhere in the 170 gallons per day, therefore the SJRA estimate for planning was wrong, in his words. I'm not questioning him. He's a good man, but I think he just has his perspective a little off. For planning purposes, you use the SFDUE standard, and he was using the actual numbers.
He was using actual, but also one key thing is during this study, the phase 1 and phase 2, that was examined, and it's not 217, it's not 170, it's actually 200. That's why wastewater plant 1 can go from 7.8 million gallons a day down to 7 million gallons a day. That way, everything, all the capacity that all the MUDs have bought, we can still serve. It's just, we don't need that extra 17 gallons.
Okay.
So we have reduced it
At this point.
at this point.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
We're going forward. Going backwards, it is what it is, but
Yeah,
going forward,
forget the backwards. Gotta look forward.
we have reduced one.
Anything else? I have not other issues in the report. Okay,
Glad you found us.
let me go back to the agenda. Okay, we have district closed session, not having it. Okay, reconvene open. Okay, so anything on the future agenda?
We need to put the GRP rebate discussion.
That'll be part of the budget.
Budget cycle.
And also the SFDUE status for the project itself.
You want to put that on for next one?
Yes.
So how do you want to label that? SFDU?
SFDUE
Analysis.
Project.
Okay,
Review and discuss, yeah, well, I want to state it correctly. Review and discuss overview of SFDUE calculations or something like that.
Costing and just a final statement as to what the number is. I think we're really close or right on. I don't know at this point.
And just to elaborate, and we've talked a lot.
yeah, I know you have.
Yeah,
I know you have.
but I think to elaborate, Fred is trying to identify on 46's behalf what the value of an SFDUE or the cost or the value, I should say, yeah, the value is correct.
What our cost is in turn, what is our
When
selling?
we get here, what would be the selling price?
Right.
Exactly.
And we haven't determined, we haven't got all the data. I had a good conversation with Ed Shackelford, who said that once he got the request from me, which he got because I copied in, well, I sent it to Dave, copying in Eric and Ed. In fact, why don't I do this? I think I've got spare copies here. Why don't I just hand it out? Okay, I know I have it here.
And we'll get it worded correctly so that we.
Yeah, y'all can work with that offline. It's just SFDUE item, the budget item, the tax rate recommendation.
There we go. I got it.
And then we'll be able to review that next month.
We might also get an education. Because in my research, it's different than what I hear from other people. It seems like you ask 10 people about SFDUEs and you get 10 different.
It's a complicated topic.
When we're talking about freshwater, it stands for single family dwelling unit equivalent. And when you're talking about wastewater, it's called sanitary flow. Design flow equivalent am I wrong or?
There was a change from the supplemental agreements on what SFDUE definition was. And I want to say that
I think we need to take this, we can't talk about all this.
let's not do it now. I-
No, it's too complicated.
Yeah. let's get the agenda.
Right.
Well, it's fine. but
It's
we
not-
need to
not
get
on the
an
agenda.
item. That's fine.
But we have this weekend again.
You have that as a background and then we can get into the next one.
Okay, any other items? No? Have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
I'll say aye.
Aye.
See you next month.
Yay.